Good day. My name is Eric DeHaan. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations here at Seoul Foreign School, and it's my pleasure to introduce this next installment of uh, the virtual speaker series that we've been featuring every month. My guest today is Jim Rhee. Jim Rhee is a class of 1980, and he has some exciting things to share about some ventures that he's been involved in. And welcome, Jim. We're excited to welcome you this morning.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, always
Yeah,
great to connect with the SFS community. So
thank
thank you.
you. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing a bit about your airline, but I thought we'd start first to give us a little background. You graduated in 1980. Do you have any memories of SFS at that time?
Yeah, sure. Many memories. I think it was a little bit of a different time.
Uh-huh.
Seoul was probably less international, and the school was a little bit more secluded. Um, but maybe the main things I remember, of course, are just friends, the great friends that I developed. And it was such a great mix of people. Probably more international back then,
Mm,
more of a foreign base. But we had all the missionary kids, of course, the international business kids, the embassy kids. But we had the Korean business kids, the families. Really, just a great group, diverse group of people. So I remember that.
mm-hmm.
Um, I also remember maybe one of the fondest, and maybe a little bit competitive still. We were just lucky because we had a amazing group of athletes that
All
came
right.
through during that time frame. And so I think SFS, a lot of the sports, we were competing at the highest level with the high
Mm-hmm.
schools around the region and winning. So that was very exciting. And being part of that, I remember quite well.
Did you travel back then? I know,
We
I
did.
mean, we're in COVID, but were you able to travel out of the country and whatnot?
Yes, we did. We did
Uh,
travel quite a bit. And so, traveled mostly for basketball at that time. But we did travel around the region.
mm-hmm. Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
And
Uh,
yeah.
s-
Sorry, just one thing I did want to add, which was a very important part of my life, um, which I really, now that I'm older as well, I appreciate. I think just the faith-based
mm,
education at SFS. I remember that very clearly, and of course some of the great people I ran into at that time who kind of influenced me, guided me. But
mm,
I think that really set up my life, to have faith as an important part of my life, and that really I
great.
attribute a lot of that to the SFS education environment.
Great. Yeah, certainly at those young ages, you're kind of looking for direction and mentors and different things. And that's great that SFS was an important part of that. So after you left SFS, where did you go to school and how did that work itself out? If you share a
So I
little of
went,
your history then.
yeah, sure. I went to Vanderbilt University, and I would say SFS, it prepared me in many ways. I guess it was less focused so much on really having you understand what college would be like,
Mm-hmm.
and guiding you through that process before you went. But I do think that just by default, the quality of the education, some of the teachers I had that really drove kind of a curiosity and desire to learn, helped me out. I do think the international experience also helped you to have a great mindset as you went to college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say though, while I was at Vanderbilt, and this is, you know, I think my parents have forgiven me for it now, but I did drop out for a while to play in a rock band,
Oh, wow. Okay.
for a little while. So that kind of my career took a little bit of a detour there, but I was able to get back on track, after gave up the band.
Uh-huh. Wow. Interesting. You're always paths are not necessarily always straight and one as one grows up and whatnot, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and by the way, that was fortunately or unfortunately, because of SFS. Because at
okay.
that time, with other friends, I picked up a guitar, and we actually formed a band at SFS.
All
And
right.
just I
Okay.
don't know, I wanted to kind of continue that experience, and that kind of
Sure.
led, to the experience at college as well.
Right. Knowing this is going out to young alums and we're kind of in the downslide of the COVID world, what advice do you have for young alums as they kind of look at careers and things? I mean, what in your career path, you've gone on an interesting path, and maybe you could share a bit about that and any advice that you'd have for our younger alumni.
Yeah, so I think that it's probably a very unique time in history dealing with COVID. I have my second son. I have three boys, but my second son graduated from YIS last year,
Okay.
and so he took a gap year. Um, and then my oldest son graduated from university last year as well.
Hmm.
And he was actually lucky because he has a startup and he got funded. But I see his college friends as well. I think that COVID has really created a challenge, um, and I do think that people going through this have to make an effort to stay engaged. You know, it's easy to stay at home, because maybe you don't have a job or you don't have interviews set up and just kind of veg a little bit. I see my own son doing that, and
Hmm.
my wife and I have to push him a bit. But I really think you have to stay engaged, make an effort. Certainly keep in touch with your friends, try to build other networks, try to pursue what other opportunities you can,
Hmm.
stay current regardless. Um, but I think it's a unique challenge that certainly, Eric, you and I didn't have to face. I don't think
Hmm.
anybody has had to face this situation. I think the good news is for me as well, my career has taken so many different paths. Um, I think there are people who know exactly what they want to do and they follow that path, very systematically. That definitely was not me. And so I've taken many different career turns and paths in my life, that have kind of led me to where I've gotten.
Hmm.
But I think that's the good thing. I mean, don't be discouraged because
Mm.
it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think just stay engaged. Look for opportunities. Do something that you love.
Hmm.
But I think opportunities open up, and just be patient.
Hmm. Hmm. So speaking of your career, you were involved in computer world for a while before aviation. Share a little bit about your career path then out of school then.
Yeah. So after college and a failed music career, um, I did go back to school. I got my degree in economics, and I think this is the importance of just building relationships.
Mm.
Not only with friends, network with professors as well, and just a general network ecosystem is very critical because I think my professor in college, who I really I loved, engaged with,
Hmm.
and I think he felt strongly about our relationship. He really is the one that kind of gave me a recommendation. I majored in economics, and he gave me a recommendation to the IMF.
Mm.
So I was able to get a job. I think it was pretty competitive, but I was able to get into the IMF.
Hmm.
Started kind of down an
Hmm.
economics path, but then I went back to business school. So I went to Kellogg in Northwestern,
Hmm.
and then I think from there, I really had almost any opportunity available because there are so
Mm.
many different companies that recruit. But I chose management consulting, so I went to McKinsey and Company,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
I was recruited out of the Chicago area. But I always wanted to get back because of my time at SFS in Korea, and I wanted to see my grandparents. I did ask to come back to Korea, so I came
Uh-huh.
back to Korea with McKinsey. And there then same thing. You have to have an open mind because McKinsey, you can kind of pick the sector that you're interested in.
Hmm.
And I was kind of focused on two sectors, kind of M&A, corporate finance side,
Hmm.
but also I looked at the tech sector. I was in telecommunications. And so that kind of opened up kind of the next move. So
Hmm.
there, um, I had been fortunate. I actually met Michael Dell in business school. And so he
All
was
right.
trying to get me to come over to Dell. And same thing,
Okay.
just keeping in touch. So I think it's really important even as you graduate, even as you meet people, try to build relationships, keep in touch, right?
Hmm.
But after McKinsey, I kept in touch with Michael, and he got me to come over to Dell. That's how I got into the computer industry. Didn't really have any, technical background, but
Okay.
was
Okay.
running the business side. So then I moved to Dell. I was running the PC business for Asia. So
Wow.
it
Okay.
included
Hmm.
China, Japan, Korea, Australia, India, Southeast Asia. So that was a great experience. And I was at Dell for quite a while, but
Hmm.
really running the PC. And then as companies made the move to cloud solutions, virtual solutions, kind of was covering that area as well.
Hmm.
So no airline. This is why you have to
Yeah, no,
be
this
flexible.
is why I'm
How to
curious about where this is
yeah
going. Sure.
yeah. So from computer and same thing, keeping in touch. I had somebody I was very close with at McKinsey. He was my mentor, and he was the CSO at a company called Tyco Electronics,
Hmm.
really a large electronics company in the world. And so he kind of asked me if I wanted to come over to Tyco Electronics and run a global business for them.
Mm.
So based on that, I did make the move to Tyco Electronics. Um, and it was theirs, but it was a similar industry, still computer. And, I moved to Taiwan.
Uh-huh.
Um, but from there, there was an opportunity to acquire one of the businesses in Tyco Electronics. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was in private equity.
Mm.
And so I was actually, we were talking, I actually moved over to the private equity side. And then was trying to put a deal together for that. And that's where I met a guy named Tony Fernandez, who was
Okay.
the founder of AirAsia, the largest LCC and one of the largest airline companies in Asia.
Right.
And so talking to him, he kind of convinced me to help him raise some money. They had started in South Asia,
Okay.
Southeast Asia, but he
Yeah,
was
they're
trying to
big
expand.
down there. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where their base was, but they were trying to expand into North Asia.
Okay.
So having met him, he kind of, convinced me to help him raise some money for AirAsia, but to run North Asia as well. So I
All
came
right.
over. That's how I made the move to the airline industry. So I came over as the CEO for AirAsia for North Asia,
Mm. Hmm.
and was kind of overseeing China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, those businesses. And then really, I started AirAsia. We had a joint venture with ANA in Japan, but that fell apart for various reasons. So then I restarted AirAsia Japan, brought in
Hmm.
some capital. And so that's kind of how I ended up in the airline industry.
Okay.
Didn't know anything about airlines. So
Uh-huh.
before that.
Okay. So tell me a bit about AirOK and what your plans are for that. And it's certainly very exciting.
Yeah, so maybe put a plug in for that. There's
Okay.
a lot of news, and I think you can Google AROK, and especially in Korean, AROK, I think, Hanbok.
Okay.
There's a lot of news recently. Yeah, so, we were always at AirAsia, and Tony, he was always interested in the Korea market, and
Hmm.
me being Korean American, um, certainly I had an interest to get into Korea.
Hmm.
But the ministry was very protective of
Mm.
the Korean market and wouldn't let a foreign carrier have an entity based in Korea.
Mm.
So there was some frustration there. We tried to acquire a couple companies. We tried to consider applying to form an entity here in Korea, but the ministry wouldn't really let us. So at that time, I was talking to some people, family and friends,
Hmm.
and they were supportive of me. And so I kind of, as a Korean American, I wanted to come back to Korea. So I had an idea just to start, since I had the experience, kind of just to start an airline on my own.
Mm.
Kind of got this
Hmm.
entrepreneurial kind of interest suddenly. And so I did make the leap. It was a big leap,
Okay.
a
Sure.
lot of challenges, but I said, okay, let me try to start my own airline in Korea. And that's kind of how I started AirOK.
Right. And
That was
certainly
5 years ago, by the way.
5 years
That was
ago. Okay.
5 years ago. I
Yeah.
thought it, I mean, I was talking to some people in Korea and then some advisors. They told me it would take, 6 months.
Uh-huh.
So, now 5 years later, we're kind of starting.
Sure. And
on-
so it's been with COVID, you've had some implications of that. Talk a little bit about that, some of the challenges you had and some of the things you've learned along the way, and maybe some of the joys that you've had and where you are now.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing to have dealt with in Korea is the regulatory body.
Mm.
It is very strict. I think for good reason from their perspective, right? They're just trying to make sure that the industry is safe. I think they have criteria sometimes that maybe, from a business sense, you may argue, does this make sense?
Hmm.
But I think it is a, very serious responsibility that the ministry here takes to protect the safety of the industry, protect the industry itself, right? So I
Hmm.
understand that. But I think dealing with some of that has just been very challenging.
Hmm.
I think COVID was actually a challenge and an opportunity. So just as we were about to get our license, we thought we were going to get it, about a year and a half ago, COVID happened.
Right.
It definitely delayed our launch. But at the same time, it's been a blessing in disguise because as I think everyone knows, the airline industry has really suffered during the
Sure.
COVID period. And so, if we had launched 2 years ago, if we had had 5 planes on the ground,
Right.
300 employees and nowhere to fly, and that's the situation that all of the airline companies are facing now.
Hmm.
I think as a startup, you see people just burning through cash,
Mm.
accumulating hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in debt. We completely avoided that.
Right.
We weren't able to launch. We had planes ready, but we were able to restructure that where we didn't have to pay for them till the planes came in.
Hmm.
Our employee base was quite small. And sure, definitely the delay, we were burning through money for sure, but at a much slower rate. And we had enough
Hmm.
capital to kind of get us through that. So that was a blessing. And in addition, the market, unfortunately, it's a bad reason for this because of COVID, which is not a good thing for the world and for people. But I
Hmm.
think because of that, you have seen other airline companies struggle a bit, reduce capacity.
Hmm.
You see kind of an opening in the market. And so I think there is a good opportunity for us now to launch successfully, be very disciplined. And so that's the two sides. Yes, it delayed us. Yes, it's been hard for the industry. But I think at the same time, it has opened up the opportunity for us.
Hmm. Hmm. Exciting. Yeah. So tell us a little bit. I mean, people will be watching this into the future, but where are you right now? And what
Yeah,
kind of is your vision for the longer term as well as the short term? Where are you going to be flying?
yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to mention quickly, because
Okay.
obviously people are so important, right? And there's definitely a partnership. So I think one of the realities of Korean the industry here in Korea when it's highly regulated. So I, as a foreigner, cannot actually be final decision maker
Mm.
for LOK. And so we have a company, shareholding company, and we have other businesses that we're launching as well,
Okay.
joint ventures and other lines of businesses, ground handling, engineering, et cetera. But the airline company still is very restricted in the sense that, like the CEO or the final decision maker has to be a Korean.
Okay.
I cannot be on the board of the airline company itself.
Okay.
So I think what that means is you have to find
Mm.
Korean partners, and I have a Korean partner, who is the representative director of the company. And so you have to find somebody you trust. You have to find
Sure.
people that you trust, especially in a startup, because ultimately he has to be the decision maker by law,
Hmm.
and legally he is held accountable by law.
Mm.
And so strictly following, we have to strictly follow the guidance of the law and how decisions are made. And, sometimes that can be a bit frustrating, but that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, as anybody interested in being an entrepreneur,
Mm.
I have learned whether it's investors, how you bring in the capital, your partners, you better choose wisely because
Okay.
those decisions are going to be with you, forever.
Sure.
So just have people that you trust, number
Mm.
one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's something that's been fortunate now. We have a good working relationship, and you have to trust the person because you're kind of letting them make, the decisions ultimately.
Right. Uh-huh.
But you have to be aligned in vision, right? So I think that's where I add the value, the kind of company we want to create. How do you
Mm.
guide the team? How do you guide, the company? Um, how do you still have an influence, but you cannot have, ultimate, control of the company. I
Sure.
think that's the challenge that I faced in Korea.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Sure. Interesting. No, that's you've hit on a few points that I think are very valid. This whole idea of trusting and finding mentorship and really working the network. I mean, that's, if you think about alumni relations, that's really you meet somebody who's been an SFS graduate. There's an immediate level of beginning comfort, and that's really an important thing that people need to consider and think about. I think especially our younger graduates.
Yeah.
I think with a little more gray hair, we appreciate that we need to find people that we can trust. So yeah.
Absolutely. Um, Maybe the other thing I would say as an entrepreneur, I mean, I think it's a good decision because eventually you look forward to the success of the company.
Uh-huh.
Um, but and it's great. It's great being an entrepreneur, but I would just, maybe the advice would be, you really have to want to do it. I
Mm.
mean, you really have to understand what being an entrepreneur means.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to have a passion and a desire to see it through because, as an entrepreneur, you don't have any of the typical infrastructure you would expect. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I came up, you know, I look at the companies I was at, the IMF, McKinsey, Dell, Tyco Electronics, even a finance, the finance industry,
Mm-hmm.
AirAsia, large, successful companies that have infrastructure. You start your own company, you have to build everything. There is
Right.
nothing there. HR, IT, finance, systems, team. So that is definitely a unique environment that you have to be comfortable with. It's not there
Mm.
unless you build it, right? Um, the other reality is, because you will see highs and lows, especially on the finance side,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always raising money, always.
Okay.
And, unless you're finally made it and your company is off and running and growing and money's no problem, but constantly you're
Mm.
looking at your cash and you're looking at investors, and you have to raise capital many different stages, so you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly in this money capital raising mode, and that's just part of the startup life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not easy,
Mm.
so that's something you just have to be used to, that you're almost always going around begging for money.
Okay.
And that's the reality. Yeah, and then it's the until you get established and you have, and once employees starting to come in and you have a responsibility,
Mm.
um, really you're responsible for the lives of people, the success and failure of this company,
Right.
um, and it's a different thing than working for a big company where that doesn't fall on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to want to do it, and it's a
Mm.
long haul.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. No, especially in a intensive environment that is the airline industry. That's very competitive and but certainly very dynamic and exciting thing. So how soon will people be able to fly on your airline, and where are you headed?
Yeah, so I know we've been trying to do this interview for a while,
Uh-huh.
and the situation was different back then. I know it was still kind of up in the air, but no, we've been, honestly, I feel like we've been blessed. And I do once again want to acknowledge, I think, the role that God has played in my life, and I think just the blessings that He's given not only me but the company. Because during this difficult time, things have happened in a good way recently. So we were able to close some needed capital. We did launch an official flight that we had to run to secure the license, which was successful. So now we're ready for a full launch. We're opening the website literally tomorrow. So the website opens tomorrow for sales, knock on wood, hopefully. We have a final review on that today. Tickets will fly officially. We have run some flights, but officially full time, 7 days a week, 3 times a day. We'll fly to Jeju starting on the 15th.
Oh, wow.
The 15th
Okay.
of this month. We're running a special promo for that. I think fares are pretty low. Plus, we have an additional 10% for the next few months. So yeah, we're officially launching 15th.
Wow, that's exciting. That's terrific. We're very happy for you. And that I had read somewhere that in this COVID period that flight between Greater Seoul area and Jeju was one of the highest demand flights. Is that true? Like globally?
Yes. Actually, historically, surprisingly, Seoul Jeju is the largest volume route in the world. And it has been for a long time historically, right? And so, especially because with borders closed, we can't fly internationally. We have a plan. I mean, our main business plan is to fly internationally. You know, there are many, many routes we want to fly to Japan, China, Taiwan, you know, eventually Southeast Asia. But in the interim, we can only fly to Jeju. Fortunately, the demand for Jeju is very high. And surprisingly as well, the load factors, which is defined as the percent of the aircraft that is occupied, the highest load factors are from Cheongju, which is where we're based. We're flying from Cheongju to Jeju. So in the interim, Jeju is still a very good market. But the problem is everybody now can only fly to Jeju. So everybody is flying to Jeju. Jeju is crazy. I was just down in Jeju myself for a family trip on Air OK. It was kind of a closed flight. But Jeju is crazy there, and I think that the challenge is now, even though we're flying there, I think people want to fly because we're going in the peak season. There are no hotels. There are no rental cars.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Jeju is just, you know, skyrocketing right now. You know, the demand and the people traveling to Jeju.
Wow, very exciting. Well, certainly it's been a pleasure to interview today and hear your passion for where you're going and where you've been and how you feel blessed that SFS has been a part of your life, and in a larger sense, how God has really blessed you and given you direction. That's a testament, I hope, to some of the things that you achieved and were a part of at SFS, and those who invested in you. I know that's still a part of who we are, you know, centered in Christ and wanting to share the love of Christ within the concept of our school. So we're certainly proud of you and wish you all the best as you get started with your airline. That's very exciting for us to count you as one of our graduates. So any final words from you, Jim?
No, thanks, Eric, once again for this interview. No, it's just kind of, I guess, reiterating, you know, Seoul Foreign School really has been an important part of my life. And obviously, you know, I still keep in touch. We recently had our, I was going to say 20, I meant 40 year. I think it was our 40th, my God, I can't believe it. 40th reunion, you know, we had online recently, right? And I think at any time, you know, I can call a friend, fellow alum. So I think SFS has been such an important part of my life and continues to be. So, and even now, Eric, I know we've been in touch, and I look forward to staying in touch with SFS. I would reiterate again, God has definitely been faithful. God is faithful. And that's been an important part of my life. And thanks to SFS for building that infrastructure.
Hmm.
And I think I'm just amazed by, SFS is not the SFS when I was there,
Mm.
and just how far it's come. And, it's now, quite honestly, it's certainly, I would say amazing. And, I wish I could have gone to the SFS
Uh-huh.
today. So anybody who's, going to SFS now, and the people I've met, and I have a lot of friends there now who have children,
Hmm.
it's just an amazing place. So please, anybody, if you're an alum at SFS, or you're graduating SFS, please value that, cherish that,
Hmm.
and continue to stay in touch with people at SFS.
Wonderful. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. And certainly you're part of the sfsconnect.com, the global network that we have. And if people wanted to reach out to you through that network, that would be great. So thank you, Jim, so much. And I look forward to continuing our friendship.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Thanks. Keep in touch. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.